I never let my son know about my $50,000 monthly income, even though he just saw me as a simple landlady. One day, he invited me to a fancy dinner with his wife's wealthy parents. I decided to see just how they'd treat a poor person by pretending to be a struggling and naive old woman. But the second I walked into that restaurant, everything unraveled. What I did that night completely humiliated my daughter-in-law and her family in a way they never saw coming. And believe me, they had it coming. Let me tell you how it all happened. And make sure you follow for tomorrow's story. I have a new one for you every single day. Let me tell you who I really am. Because my son David, at 36 years old, never had a clue about his mother. To him, I was just Esther, the woman who lived in the downstairs unit of an old duplex, the one who was always painting a wall or fixing a leaky faucet. He thought I was just scraping by, collecting rent, maybe a landlady, someone ordinary, nothing special. And I never, ever corrected him. I never told him that I cleared $50,000 every month, that I had spent 40 years building a real estate portfolio from nothing, signing deals for apartment buildings and managing properties that housed thousands of people. Why would I tell him? Money was never something I felt the need to wear like a new coat. I grew up in a time when your character was what you carried inside, where hard work spoke louder than a full wallet. So, I kept my secret. I lived in the same modest duplex for decades. I used the same cloth grocery bags until they were threadbare. I bought my clothes at the department store, cooked my own meals, saved every penny, reinvested every dollar, and became wealthy in total silence. Because real strength doesn't need to announce itself. Real strength just watches. And I was watching very closely when David called me that Wednesday afternoon. His voice was tight, anxious, the way it got when he was a boy and had broken a neighbor's window. "Mom, I need a big favor. Chloe's parents are in town from the East Coast. It's their first time in Chicago. They really want to meet you. We're all going to dinner on Saturday at the Embers. Please, say you'll come." Something in his voice rubbed me the wrong way. It wasn't a son excited to have his mother meet his family. It was the voice of someone hoping I wouldn't be an embarrassment, someone trying to manage a situation. "Do they know anything about me?" I asked, keeping my voice level. There was a pause. Then David mumbled, "Well, I told them you managed a few properties, that you live simply, that you know, get by." There it was, that word. Simple. As if my whole life, my whole struggle, could be summed up in that one little word. As if I was a problem he had to explain away. I took a long, slow breath. "All right, David, I'll be there." I hung up the phone and looked around my small living room. The furniture was old but clean, no fancy art on the walls, just a small television. Nothing that would impress anyone. And right then, I made a decision. If my son thought I was a poor landlady, if his wife's family was coming to dinner ready to look down on me, then I would give them exactly the woman they expected to see. I would play the part of the broke, clueless, and slightly pathetic mother. A woman just barely hanging on. I wanted to see, with my own eyes, how they treated someone they thought had nothing. I wanted to see their real faces. Because I had a suspicion, you see. I suspected Chloe and her family were the kind of people who measured a person's worth by the brand of their shoes. And my gut is almost never wrong. Saturday came. I went to my closet and picked out the saddest outfit I owned. A faded brown knit dress, the kind that has lost its shape, and a pair of practical, scuffed-up flat shoes. No jewelry. Not even my simple wedding band. I grabbed a worn canvas tote bag, pulled my gray hair back into a loose, messy bun, and looked at myself. I looked like a woman life had forgotten. Invisible. It was perfect. I took a bus downtown and gave the address. A high-end steakhouse in the Gold Coast, the kind of place where the water glasses are crystal and the waiters wear tuxedos, where one steak costs more than my entire weekly grocery budget. As I rode the bus, I felt a knot in my stomach. It was a mix of nerves and sadness. Nerves for the performance I was about to give, and sadness that a part of me, a small part, was still hoping I was wrong about them. I hoped they would be kind, that they would look past my old dress and see me. But the other part of me, the part that had negotiated with cutthroat developers for 40 years, that part knew exactly what was waiting for me. The bus let me off a block away. I walked up to the restaurant. Warm light spilled onto the sidewalk. A man in a suit opened the heavy oak door. Elegant people drifted in and out. I paid, walked inside, took a deep breath, and there they were. David was standing by a large, circular booth. He was wearing a dark blue suit and looked like he hadn't exhaled all day. Beside him was Chloe, my daughter-in-law. She wore a sleek black dress, pearls at her neck, her blonde hair perfect. She looked elegant, as always, but she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the entrance with a strained, almost pained expression. And then I saw them, Chloe's parents, already seated. They were holding court. The mother, Margaret, was in a shimmering silver dress, diamonds on her neck, her ears, and her fingers. Her hair was perfectly styled. She had that sharp, polished beauty that always looks vaguely disappointed. Beside her sat Richard, her husband. An expensive-looking gray suit, a massive gold watch on his wrist, and a look of complete boredom. They looked like they owned the place. I walked toward them slowly, taking small steps, as if I were intimidated by the plush carpet. David saw me first and his face froze. His eyes scanned me from my messy hair to my scuffed shoes. I saw his Adam's apple bob as he swallowed. "Mom, you made it." His voice was strained. "Of course, dear. Here I am," I said, giving him a small, timid smile. The smile of a woman who knows she doesn't belong. Chloe rushed over and gave me a kiss that barely touched my cheek. It was cold, fast. "Esther, so good to see you." Her eyes were screaming the opposite. She gestured to her parents with a tight, apologetic little wave. "Mom, Dad, this is David's mother, Esther." Margaret's eyes lifted. She scanned me, one long, slow appraisal. And in that 1 second, I saw it all. The judgment, the pity, the instant dismissal. Her gaze lingered on my knit dress, then my canvas bag. She didn't say anything, just offered me her hand. Her grip was limp and cold. "A pleasure." Richard mirrored her. A weak handshake, a smile that didn't move. Charmed. I slid into the booth, at the very end, as far from them as I could get. No one moved to help me. No one asked if I was comfortable. The waiter appeared with menus as large as placemats, all in fancy script. I opened mine and stared at it, pretending to be completely overwhelmed. Margaret was watching me. "Do you need some help with that, Esther?" she asked, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Oh, yes, please," I whispered, my voice small. I don't recognize any of these words. It's all so fancy. She sighed, a little puff of air. "Don't worry. We'll just order for you. Something simple," she said to the waiter. "The chicken, perhaps. We don't want to get too adventurous." The words just hung there. Richard nodded in agreement. David looked at the ceiling. Chloe started shredding her cocktail napkin. Nobody said a word. And I just watched. Margaret started the conversation, talking about their flight, how tiring first class is these days, how different Chicago was from their home in Boston. Then, right on cue, she started talking about money. She mentioned the hotel they were staying at. $1,200 a night, she said. But the suite is just dreadfully small. She mentioned the Bentley they had rented. It's just so much smoother than the Mercedes. She talked about their recent shopping trip. We bought a few little things. Nothing much, just a new watch for Richard. A Patek. She kept glancing at me as if expecting me to gasp, to be impressed. I just nodded. "Oh, how lovely," I said. "That's nice." She continued, "You know, Esther, Richard and I have always been very fortunate. Our families, old money. We've managed it well. Now we have homes in 3 states. Richard oversees the family's investment fund, and I manage our charitable endeavors." She smiled, a smile of pure superiority. "And you, dear? What is it exactly that you do? David said you manage properties?" Her tone was light, but the question was a knife. "I'm a landlady," I replied, lowering my eyes. "I have a small duplex. I live in one part, rent the other. Fix faucets, paint walls, simple things." Margaret exchanged a look with Richard. "Ah, a landlady. How quaint. It's honest work. All work is dignified, isn't it?" "Of course," I replied. The food came. Giant white plates with tiny, artful portions. Margaret poked at her fish. "This is $90, she announced. "But it's worth it. One must pay for quality. You can't just eat any old thing, can you?" I nodded. "Oh no, you're right." David tried to change the subject, talking about a project at his firm. Margaret cut him off. "David, dear, does your mother live all alone in that duplex?" David nodded. "Yes, she does." Margaret looked at me with a face full of fake pity. "It must be so difficult, Esther. All alone at your age, with just that one rental income. It must be a struggle. And does your salary cover all your expenses?" I could feel the trap. I answered quietly, "I manage. I save where I can. I don't need much." Margaret sighed, a big, dramatic performance. "Oh, Esther, you're just so brave. I truly admire women who have to struggle like that. Although naturally, one always wants to provide more for their children, to give them a better start in life. But well, we all do what we can." There it was, the subtle, poisonous jab. She was telling me I hadn't been enough for David, that I hadn't given him what he deserved, that I was a poor, failed mother. Chloe was staring at her water glass. David was clenching his jaw. I just smiled. "Yes, you're right. Everyone does what they can." Margaret pressed on. "We always made sure Chloe had the very best. The best schools, violin lessons, trips to Europe. She speaks 3 languages. Now she has a wonderful job in marketing, earns a lovely salary. And when she married David, well, we were just so happy to help them. We paid for their wedding, of course, the whole thing. And we gave them the $60,000 down payment for their condo. Because that's what parents do. We believe in setting our children up for success." She locked her eyes on me. "And you, Esther, were you able to help David with anything when they got married?" The question was sharp as glass. "Not much," I replied. "I gave them what I could. A small check." Margaret smiled. "How sweet. Every little bit counts, doesn't it? It's the thought that matters, not the amount." And right then, I felt the anger start to build. It wasn't a hot anger. It was cold, deep, and steady. I took a slow breath, kept my timid smile, and let Margaret keep talking. Because that's what people like her do. They talk. They puff themselves up. They perform. And the more they talk, the more they show you just how empty they are inside. Margaret took a sip of her expensive red wine, swirling it in the glass like she was a professional. "This wine," she said, "is from a small vineyard in Napa. It's $300 a bottle. But when you appreciate the finer things, you don't mind the cost. Do you drink wine, Esther?" "Oh, only on holidays," I replied. "And usually just the big jug from the grocery store. I don't know much about all these fancy kinds." Margaret smiled, that condescending little tilt of her lips. "Oh, don't you worry. It's an acquired taste. It comes with exposure, with travel, with a certain kind of upbringing. Richard and I have been to vineyards all over the world. We know what to look for." Richard nodded. "It's a passion. Chloe is learning too. She has a good palate. She gets it from us." Chloe just gave a weak little smile. "Thanks, Dad." Margaret turned back to me. "And you, Esther? Do you have any hobbies? Anything you enjoy in your spare time? I shrugged. Oh, I like to garden a little. I watch my television shows. I knit. Simple things. Margaret and Richard shared another look. A look that said, "Can you believe this?" How lovely, Margaret said. Simple things are so grounding. Although one always hopes to see the world, doesn't one? To have new experiences, to grow. But, well, I suppose not everyone gets that chance. I nodded. You're right. Not everyone does. The waiter brought dessert menus, tiny little cakes for $25. Margaret ordered the most expensive one, something with gold flakes on it. This is delicious, she said. You see that? That's real edible gold. It's just a little detail, but it makes all the difference. I ate my simple scoop of vanilla ice cream. In silence, Margaret continued. You know, Esther, I think it's important we have a family discussion, now that we're all here. She put her spoon down. Her face became serious, like a doctor about to give bad news. David is our son-in-law now, and we just adore him. Chloe loves him, and we respect her choice. But as parents, we just want what's best for our daughter. David tensed. Mom, I really don't think this is the place. Margaret held up her hand. No, let me finish, David. This is important. She looked at me. Esther, I understand you did the best you could with David. Raising a boy alone, I know it wasn't easy. I truly respect you for that. But David is in a different league now. He's married. He has a new life, new responsibilities. And well, Chloe and he deserve to have stability. Stability? I asked softly. Yes, Margaret said. Financial stability, emotional stability. We've helped them a great deal, and will continue to. But we also think it's important that David isn't weighed down, that he doesn't have unnecessary burdens. Her meaning was crystal clear. She was calling me a burden. Me. His mother. Chloe looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. David's face was white. Burdens? I repeated. Margaret sighed. I don't want to be unkind, Esther. But at your age, living alone, on what must be a very limited income, it's only natural that David worries about you, that he feels he has to take care of you. And that's fine. He's a good son. But we don't want that worry to bleed into his marriage. Do you understand? Perfectly, I said. Margaret smiled, relieved. Oh, good. I'm so glad you see it. That's why Richard and I wanted to make you an offer. She paused for dramatic effect. We would like to help you. We'd like to give you a small monthly allowance, something to help you live more comfortably so David doesn't have to worry. Nothing extravagant, of course. We can't work miracles. But it would be a support. I just sat there watching her. She continued. And in return, we would just ask that you give them some space, respect their new life. Don't lean on them so much. Let them be free to build their future without interference. How does that sound? There it was. The bribe, the payoff. They wanted to pay me to disappear from my own son's life. So I wouldn't be an embarrassment. So I wouldn't stain their perfect daughter's perfect life with my poverty. David just about exploded. Mom, that is enough. You can't. Margaret cut him off. David, be calm. We are all adults. Your mother understands. Don't you, Esther? I picked up my cloth napkin. I slowly, calmly wiped my mouth. I took a sip of water. I let the silence stretch out. Everyone was staring at me. Margaret with her expectant smile. Richard with his arrogant smirk. Chloe with her eyes full of shame. David with desperation. And then I spoke. My voice was different. It wasn't small anymore. It wasn't timid. It was firm, clear, and cold as ice. That's a very interesting offer, Margaret. Very generous of you. Margaret beamed, victorious. I'm so glad you see it that way. I nodded. But I have a question, just so I'm clear. Margaret blinked. Of course. Ask anything. I leaned forward just a little. How much exactly were you thinking for this modest allowance? Margaret hesitated. Well, we were thinking perhaps $800 a month? Maybe $900. I nodded. I see. $900 a month for me to abandon my son. Margaret frowned. I wouldn't phrase it like that. Oh, but I would, I said. That is exactly what you are phrasing. She shifted in her seat. Esther, I don't want you to take this the wrong way. We just want to help. Of course, I said. Help, like you helped with the wedding. How much was that? $60,000? Margaret nodded, proud. Actually, it was closer to $70,000. Ah, $70,000. How generous. And the down payment? $60,000. That's right, Richard said. So you've invested about $130,000 in David and Chloe. Margaret smiled. Well, when you love your children, you don't spare any expense. I nodded slowly. You're right. When you love your children, you don't. But tell me something, Margaret. All that money, all that investment, what did it buy you? She blinked, confused. I don't understand. Did it buy you respect? I continued. Did it buy you real love? Or did it just buy you obedience? The temperature at the table dropped 20 degrees. Margaret's smile vanished. Excuse me? My voice got sharper. You have spent this entire dinner talking about one thing. Money, how much your hotel costs, how much your car costs, how much your wine costs, how much you spent on your daughter. But you haven't asked me one single question about me. You haven't asked how I am, if I'm happy, if I'm lonely. You just calculated my worth, and apparently, I'm worth $900 a month. Margaret turned pale. I did not. Yes, I interrupted. Yes, you did. From the moment I walked in, you have been measuring me with your bank account. And you know what I've learned, Margaret? The people who talk the most about money are the ones who have the least understanding of real value. Richard jumped in. Now, see here, I think you are misreading my wife's intentions. I turned my gaze on him. And what are her intentions, Richard? To treat me like a charity case? To humiliate me over a $90 piece of fish? To offer me pocket money to get lost? Richard opened his mouth, then closed it. David was staring at me, his mouth open. Mom, please. I looked at him. No, David. I'm done being please. I'm done being simple. I put my napkin on the table. I sat up straight. There was no more timidity in my posture. I looked Margaret right in the eye. She held my gaze for half a second before she looked away, flustered. Something had changed, and she knew it. They all knew it. Margaret, you said something interesting. You said you admire women who struggle, women who are brave. She nodded slowly. Yes, I did. Then let me ask you something. Have you ever struggled? Have you ever had to build something from nothing? Have you ever, for one day in your life, not had your old money to fall back on? Margaret stammered. I have my own accomplishments. Such as? I asked, genuinely curious. Tell me. She straightened her diamond necklace. I manage our charitable foundation. I oversee our investments. I make important decisions. I nodded. Decisions about money your family gave you, investments your husband manages, a foundation that exists because of wealth you didn't earn. Or am I wrong? Richard snapped. That's unfair. My wife works very hard. Oh, I'm sure she does, I said calmly. But there's a difference between managing money and making it. There's a difference between inheriting a legacy and building one, brick by brick. Don't you think? Margaret's lips were a thin white line. I don't know what you're getting at, Esther. Let me spell it out for you, I said. 45 years ago, I was 22 years old. I was a waitress at a diner. I earned $2 an hour plus tips. I lived in a tiny one-room apartment. I ate toast for dinner. David was staring at me. I'd never told him these details. I continued. I said, "One day I got pregnant. The father, well, he didn't stick around. My family disowned me. I had a choice: give up or get to work. I chose to work. I worked tables until the night before David was born. I went back to work 3 weeks later. An old woman in my building watched him for cash. I worked 14 hours a day." I paused and took a sip of water. The table was silent. I didn't stay a waitress. I saved every single dollar. I took night classes at the community college. I learned bookkeeping. I learned about real estate. I learned it all from the public library, all on my own, all while raising a child alone, all while paying for rent and food and diapers. Margaret was staring at her plate. Her superior mask was crumbling. "And you know what happened, Margaret? I saved enough money to buy one small run-down duplex. The one I live in now. I fixed it up with my own 2 hands. I rented out the other side. Then I used that money to buy another, and another, and another. It took me 40 years, Margaret. 40 years of 18-hour days, of leaky roofs and broken boilers, of sacrificing everything. But I did it. And do you know how much I earn now?" I asked. She just shook her head. $50,000, I said. "A month." The silence in the restaurant was deafening. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. David's jaw dropped. Chloe's eyes were as wide as saucers. Richard just frowned, like he was trying to do math. And Margaret just froze. $50,000, I repeated, every single month, net, from my properties. That's over $500,000 a year, not counting the equity, not counting the new developments I'm funding, not counting the commercial buildings. Margaret finally found her voice. "No, I don't believe you. You live in that duplex?" I finished for her. "Yes, I do. Because I like it. Because it's my home. Because it's the first thing I ever owned. Because I don't need a 1,200 a night hotel room to feel good about myself." David was pale. "Mom, why? Why did you never tell me?" I looked at him, my voice softening. "Because I didn't want you to know, honey. I wanted you to grow up valuing hard work, not an inheritance. I wanted you to make your own way, to be your own man. I didn't want this," I gestured to the table, "to be what you thought was important." Chloe whispered, "But the clothes, the car? You take the bus." I smiled. "Because I don't need to impress anyone. Because true wealth is quiet. Because I learned that the more you have, the less you have to prove it." I looked right at Margaret. "That's why I came here like this tonight. That's why I pretended to be a poor, struggling landlady. I wanted to see how you would treat me if you thought I had nothing. I wanted to see who you really were. And oh, Margaret, I saw it all." Margaret's face was beet red. Humiliation, anger, and shock all fighting for space. This is a trick. If you had that much money, David would know. We would know." "Why would you?" I replied. "Because I never talk about it. Because I live simply. Because the money I make, I reinvest. I build. I don't spend it on diamond necklaces or $300 bottles of wine to show off to strangers." Richard cleared his throat. "Even so, that doesn't excuse your deception. You were rude to my wife." "Really?" I fixed my gaze on him. I was rude? I wasn't the one who called a guest a burden. I wasn't the one who offered to pay my son's mother to disappear. I wasn't the one who made snide comments about her clothes, her home, and her life all night long. Richard had no answer. Neither did Margaret. I stood up. Everyone at the table looked at me. "Let me tell you something that your old money clearly never taught you. Money doesn't buy class. It doesn't buy kindness. And it certainly doesn't buy character. You may have money, but you don't have an ounce of what actually matters. Margaret stood up, furious. And you do? You who lied to us? Who set us up to look like fools? I didn't make you look like fools, I said coldly. You did that all by yourselves. I just gave you the stage, and you gave a magnificent performance. Chloe was crying now, silent tears running down her face. Esther, I didn't know. I know, I interrupted. You didn't know. But your parents knew exactly what they were doing. They knew they were humiliating me, and they enjoyed it. Right up until the moment they found out the poor landlady they looked down on could buy and sell them 10 times over. And now they don't know what to do. Margaret was trembling. You have no right. I have every right, I said. I am David's mother, and I deserve respect. Not because of my bank account, but because I'm a human being. A fact you seem to have forgotten all evening. David stood up. Mom, please, let's just go. Not yet, honey. I'm not quite finished. I looked at Margaret one last time. You offered me $900 a month. Let me make you a counteroffer. I will give you $1 million right now if you can tell me one time in your life you were kind to someone who couldn't do anything for you. Margaret's mouth opened and closed. Nothing came out. Exactly, I said. You can't. Because to you, people are just balance sheets. And that's the difference between you and me, Margaret. I built my wealth. You just inherited it. I earned my respect. You try to buy it. I have dignity. You have a portfolio. I reached into my old canvas tote bag. I pulled out my simple, worn checkbook. I tore out a blank check. I signed my name, Esther Collins, and dropped it on the table in front of her. Pay for the dinner. Consider it a gift from a struggling old woman. Margaret stared at the check like it was a snake. My name, Esther Collins, was printed on it, but above it, in small letters, was the account name, Collins Property Group, LLC. Her hand was shaking when she picked it up. She looked at it, then at me. Her eyes. That superior, icy look was gone. Now there was something new. Fear. I don't need your money, she whispered, her voice cracking. I know, I said, but I didn't need your pity either, and you offered it to me all night. So take it as a lesson in manners. Something all your European travels clearly failed to teach you. Richard slammed his hand on the table. Enough! This is an outrage. You are disrespecting us. Respect? I repeated. That's a funny word for you to use now. Where was your respect when your wife asked if I could afford my life? Where was it when she called me a burden? Where was it when she tried to pay me off? Richard clenched his jaw. Margaret was just trying to help. No, I corrected. Margaret was trying to control. She wanted to make sure the poor mother-in-law didn't mess up her daughter's perfect image. She wanted to prune the family tree. The problem is, she tried to cut the wrong branch. I looked at Chloe. Her head was down, her hands in her lap. Chloe, I said, my voice softer. She looked up, her face streaked with tears. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't know Don't finish that sentence, I said. Because you did know. You may not have known about my money, but you knew what your parents are like. You knew how they treat people they think are lesser, and you sat there, and you let them. Chloe sobbed. I wanted to say something, but they're my parents. I know, I said. And David is my son, and yet I let him make his own choices. I let him choose his own life, his own wife, because that's how you love someone, with freedom, not with control, not with money, not with manipulation. David came to my side. Mom, forgive me, please, for not asking, for just assuming, for thinking you were. His voice broke. I put my arm around him. You have nothing to apologize for, David. I'm the one who kept the secret. I did it to protect you, to make you independent, to make you value the right things. But I made you feel like you had to protect me, David said. Like you had to worry. That I was fragile. I know, I said. And it's not wrong to worry about people. It's not wrong to care. That's empathy, David. That's a lesson no amount of money can ever buy. He hugged me tight. I'm so sorry, Mom. Margaret was still standing, stiff as a board, watching us with a look of pure confusion. This changes nothing, she finally said. You lied. You deceived us all. You came here under false pretenses. That's true, I agreed. I did. I pretended to be something I'm not, which is, funnily enough, exactly what you two do every single day. What is that supposed to mean? Richard snapped. It means you hide behind your old money, behind your expensive cars, behind your brand names. But inside, you're terrified. You're empty. You have nothing real to offer. You don't talk about ideas. You don't talk about joy. You only talk about price. Margaret let out a dry, bitter laugh. That's rich, coming from the woman who just pulled this stunt. Maybe, I said, but my lie brought out the truth. Your truth. And now you can't hide from it. Now you know that I saw you. I heard every insult. I felt every condescending look. And I will never, ever forget it. The waiter approached cautiously. Excuse me, is everything all right? Would you like the check? Richard nodded curtly. Just the check. The waiter scurried away. Margaret sat back down heavily. All the elegance was gone. She just looked small. Esther, she said, her voice different, weaker. I don't want this to ruin our families. David and Chloe love each other. We can't let this what? I cut her off. Let this get in the way of your image? It's too late for that, Margaret. The truth is out. But we can fix this, she insisted. We can start over. No, I said firmly. We can't, because now I know who you are, and you know who I am, and we can't unring that bell. You treated me like dirt, and you liked it, because you thought I couldn't fight back. Richard cleared his throat. You're the one who came here to start a fight. You provoked this. You're right, I nodded. I did, because I had to know. I had to know what my son had married into. I had to confirm what I already suspected, that you are not good people, that your money hasn't made you better, it's just made you louder. Margaret wiped at her eye. We are not bad people. Maybe not, I said, but you're not good, and there's a big, empty space between those two things. The waiter returned with the check and placed it in the middle of the table. No one moved. Margaret stared at my checkbook, then at me. I'm not using your check, she said. We will pay our own way, as we always do. Fine, I said. Then keep the check as a souvenir, a reminder that the world is not what it seems, that the woman you tried to buy for $900 a month could have bought this entire restaurant. Richard took out his wallet, a sleek alligator skin thing. He pulled out a shiny platinum credit card and dropped it on the tray. The waiter took it and left. The silence was thick. Chloe was crying softly. David held my hand. Margaret stared at the wall. Richard checked his watch. The waiter returned. I'm very sorry, sir. This card has been declined. Richard's head snapped up. What? That's impossible. Run it again. The waiter looked embarrassed. I did, sir. Twice. It's declined. Do you have another form of payment? Richard turned red. This is ridiculous. It must be a security flag from the bank. He fumbled for another card, a gold one. Try this. The waiter left again. Margaret looked at her husband, panicked. Richard? What's wrong? Nothing, he snapped. It's a bank error. It happens when we travel. Of course, I said, my voice neutral. How inconvenient. The waiter returned, his face even more pained. Sir, I'm afraid this one was also declined. Richard stood up, This is an outrage. I'm calling my banker right now. He stormed away from the table, pulling out his phone. Margaret just sat there, completely humiliated. This has never happened, she whispered. What awful, awful timing, I commented. David looked at the bill. Mom, No, I said, cutting him off. You're not paying for this. I looked at Margaret. Her face was a mask of shame. Armand, I called out. The waiter, who was hovering nearby, flinched. No, not you, dear. The manager. A man in a tailored suit. The manager, who had been watching from across the room, hurried over. Ms. Collins, what a surprise. I didn't know you were in tonight. Is everything all right? Margaret's head snapped toward me. Ms. Collins. The manager, Armand, looked at the table, at the declined cards, at Richard storming off. Oh dear. Is there a problem with the bill, Ms. Collins? No problem at all, Armand, I said warmly. My guests are just having a little trouble with their bank. Could you please just add this to my monthly ledger? Armand smiled, relieved. But of course, immediately. My apologies for the confusion. He glanced at Margaret and Chloe. I trust the meal was to your satisfaction. It was lovely, Armand. Thank you. Will you be needing your car service, Ms. Collins? No, thank you. David is going to see me home. Armand nodded and whisked the bill away. Margaret was staring at me, her eyes wide with a new kind of horror. Your ledger, Ms. Collins? I smiled. Yes, it's so much easier than dealing with cards, don't you think? I find it simple. You have an account here? Chloe whispered. Something like that, dear, I said. I own the building. The color drained from Margaret's face. She looked like she had been slapped. You own this building, yes. And the one next to it. And the parking garage across the street. This restaurant, the Embers, they've been my tenants for 15 years. Armand is a wonderful manager. Margaret just sank back into the booth. She said nothing. Richard returned, his face pale. There's a temporary freeze on the accounts, a security issue. It will be sorted. Tomorrow. He looked at the table. Is it paid? Yes, Margaret said, her voice hollow. She paid. Richard looked at me, his pride completely shattered. Thank you, he mumbled. It was barely a whisper. You're welcome, Richard, I replied. That's what family is for, isn't it? To help each other out, especially when someone is in a bit of a tight spot. Whether it's $900 or just... I glanced at the space where the check was. A $750 dinner. Richard closed his eyes. Margaret looked like she was going to be sick. David squeezed my hand. Mom, let's go, please. It's enough. I looked at him. You're right, it is. I turned to Chloe. She was still crying. Chloe, I said gently. She looked at me. You're not your parents. You don't have to be. No one chooses the family they're born into. But you get to choose how you act. You get to choose how you treat people. And you get to choose what values you'll teach your own children someday. Chloe nodded, unable to speak. I'm sorry, she finally choked out. Don't be sorry, I told her. Just learn. Learn that a person's worth has nothing to do with their bank account. That humility isn't weakness. And that respect is something you give freely. It costs nothing, but it's worth everything. Chloe just sobbed. David put his arm around her. Margaret looked away. Richard was staring at his phone, refusing to make eye contact. I started to walk away. I took 2 steps, then I stopped. I turned back one last time. Oh, and Margaret? One more thing. She looked up, her eyes empty. You mentioned you speak 3 languages? She frowned. What? What does that matter? Just curious, I said. In which one of those languages did you learn to be kind? Because it clearly wasn't any of them. Margaret's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Exactly, I said. You can speak a dozen languages and still have absolutely nothing to say. I walked out of the restaurant. David was right beside me. The cool night air of Chicago hit my face. I took a deep, deep breath. I felt light, as if I'd been carrying a heavy weight for 40 years and had finally set it down. The weight of the secret. The weight of being simple Esther. David put his arm through mine. Mom, are you okay? I'm perfect, I said. Better than I've been in years. How about you, David? He sighed. I'm processing. I can't believe it. Your job, the money, you own that building. I stopped on the sidewalk and looked at him. Does it bother you? He shook his head fast. No, God, no, Mom. I'm proud. I'm stunned. But I also feel like an idiot for not seeing it, for just assuming. You're not an idiot, I told him. You saw what I showed you. I wanted you to grow up without that pressure. I wanted you to find your own way, to fight for your own successes. I didn't want you to be like them, waiting for an inheritance. He nodded. I get it. I really do. But I also understand now why you were always so calm. Why you never complained about money. You didn't have to. I smiled. Oh, I had worries, honey. Just not that one. I worried about you. I worried about you growing up to be a good man. I worried about you finding happiness. Even with Chloe? He asked, his voice small. Even with Chloe, I said. She's not her parents. She has a good heart in there. She's just been trained to hide it. But that's up to her. And it's up to you. You two have to decide what kind of life you're going to build. Theirs or yours. David was quiet, thinking. A cab pulled up. I had called one on my phone as we were leaving. I opened the door. Mom, David said, can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you do it? The performance. Pretending to be poor. Why not just tell them who you were from the start? I turned back to him. Because I had to know, David. I had to know if my suspicions were right. If Chloe's family was as shallow and as cruel as I feared. And I was right. David looked down. I'm so sorry. You don't have to be sorry for them, I said. But you do have to decide what you're going to do now. You just saw two very different ways of living. Your in-laws' way and mine. They use money to control, to judge, to feel superior. I use it to be free, to live quietly. You have to decide which path you're on. David nodded slowly. I understand. I got into the cab. I rolled down the window. Mom, one last thing. What is it? Are you ever going to forgive them? Margaret and Richard? I thought about that for a second. Forgiving isn't forgetting, David. And it's not letting them do it again. I might forgive them. Someday. If I see that they've actually changed. If they start seeing people as people, not as price tags. But until then, I'll just be polite. And I'll be distant. And me? He asked. Do you forgive me? For not knowing? For letting this dinner even happen? I looked at him, my heart full. Oh, honey, there is nothing to forgive. You wanted your family to meet. That's a good thing. What happened tonight? That wasn't your fault. It was theirs. And a little bit mine for setting the trap. He managed a small smile. You caught them. I did, I nodded. But I don't feel happy about it. I just feel sad. Sad that I was right. Sad that some people are so empty inside that all they have is their money. The cab driver cleared his throat. Ma'am? Yes, I said. 1 second. I looked at David. Go home. Go talk to Chloe. Listen to her. But be honest. Tell her how you felt tonight. Tell her what you expect from her and from her family. Because if you don't set boundaries right now, this will be your entire life. I will, David promised. I love you, Mom. I mean, I really, really love you. I know who you are now. And you're incredible. I smiled. I love you too, son. I always have. And I always will. No matter what's in my bank account, because that's the one thing that has no price. And that, I thought, is the one lesson Margaret and Richard will never, ever learn. David stepped back. The cab pulled away. I watched him in the mirror, standing on the sidewalk, looking thoughtful. He was probably going to go home and have the hardest conversation of his marriage. And I was so proud of him. He was choosing. He was growing. The cab moved through the city streets, all lit up. I closed my eyes. I wondered if I'd been too hard, too cruel. But then I remembered Margaret's voice. Unnecessary burdens, a small allowance, $900 a month. And I knew I'd done exactly the right thing. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. I opened it. It was Chloe. Esther, please forgive me. I am so ashamed. I had no idea my parents would be like that. I need to talk to you, please. I looked at the message for a long time. Then I put the phone down. Not yet. She needed time. Words that come from guilt don't mean much. Real change. Real change takes work. The cab driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Tough night, ma'am? I looked up. You could say that. Was it that obvious? He shrugged. Been driving this cab for 30 years. I know the look. You came out of that restaurant looking like you just won a war, but you're not happy about it. I smiled a little. You're very perceptive. It's the job, he said. People who come out of there are usually loud or drunk or both. You're quiet. Like you just said something you've been holding in for 20 years. Something like that, I admitted. We drove in silence for a few minutes. Well, he said, whatever it was, you did the right thing. I can tell. 'Cause you're calm. You ain't crying. You ain't yelling. You're just settled. That's the look of someone who finally told the truth. His words hit me. He was an older man, gray hair, kind eyes, a simple man. You believe in telling the truth? I asked. I believe in being honest, he said. Truth? That changes depending on who's telling it. But honesty, that's just saying it like you feel it. No games, no masks, even if it hurts. I nodded. You're right. We pulled up to my duplex, an old, clean brick building. Nothing fancy. The driver looked at it. You live here? I do, I confirmed. He shook his head. You're a puzzle, ma'am. You come from the fanciest place in town, you talk like you own it, but you live like a regular person. I am a regular person, I said. I just have a good job. Nah, he said. The real rich ones. They don't need to prove it. They're the ones living in places like this. He'd hit the nail on the head. How much do I owe you? 28, he said. I handed him a $100 bill. Keep it. Ma'am, this is too much. No, it's not, I said. You listened. You reminded me that there are still good, honest people in the world. That's worth more than $72. He took it. Thank you, truly. Thank you. No, thank you, I said. And hang on to that honesty. It's a rare thing. I got out of the cab. He leaned over. Ma'am, whatever you did tonight, don't you dare regret it. People like you, who ain't afraid to speak up. You're the ones who change things. I smiled. Thank you. I'll remember that. I went inside, up to my simple, clean apartment. I took off my sad knit dress and my scuffed shoes. I put on my old comfortable robe. I made a cup of tea and sat in my old armchair, the one David used to jump on. And I felt peace. I felt free. Because tonight, I didn't just expose Margaret and Richard. I finally liberated myself. I was done hiding. My phone buzzed again. It was David. Mom, got home. Chloe's a wreck. We're talking. Thank you. For being you. For teaching me. I smiled and typed back. I love you. Always. I put the phone down and drank my tea. I looked around my little living room, my sanctuary, and I knew in that moment that I was the richest woman in the world. I woke up early on Sunday. The sun was streaming in. I made my coffee and my phone rang. It was David. His voice was raw, tired. Mom, we talked all night. How is she? I asked. She's... I've never seen her like this, he said. After I got home, she told me everything. How her parents... They didn't come from old money, Mom. That was a lie. They came from lost money. Her grandfather gambled away a huge family fortune. Her parents grew up with the memory of being rich, but they were poor. They've spent their entire lives obsessed with getting that status back. Obsessed with appearing rich so no one would ever know they'd failed. I took a sip of my coffee. Well, that explains a lot. She said she's been silent her whole life, David continued, because she was terrified of losing again, of not being good enough, of being a disappointment. And last night, when you told your story, about building something from nothing, while they were just pretending, she said it just broke her. And her parents? I asked. They left. They're flying back to Boston today. Margaret called Chloe this morning and said she had disgraced the family. Richard, he threatened to cut Chloe off from the family fund that, I guess, doesn't even have that much in it. Emotional blackmail, I said. The last resort. It didn't work, David said, his voice proud. Chloe told them. She told them she was done, that she loved them, but she wouldn't be part of their charade anymore. That she chose me. That she chose... Well, she said she chose us. Our family. That's good, son, I said, my heart swelling. That's very good. She wants to see you, Mom, he said. She wants to apologize. In person. She wants to ask you to teach her how to be real. I thought about that. Tell her she can come, but not today. Tell her to come on Wednesday. Apologies that are rushed are for the person giving them. The ones that take time, they're for the person receiving them. I'll tell her, he said. Mom, thank you for doing that. It was hard, but we needed it. I love you, son. I love you too. 3 days later, on Wednesday, my doorbell rang. It was Chloe. She was wearing simple jeans and a sweater. No makeup, no jewelry. She looked like a young woman, not a doll. Esther, she said, her voice small. May I come in? I opened the door. She sat on my old sofa, the one with the floral print. She talked for an hour. She told me about her family, about the shame, about the constant pressure to perform. And she apologized. Not for her parents, but for herself. For her own silence. I was a coward, she said, tears in her eyes. I sat there and let them treat you like that. And I'm so sorry. You were scared, I said. It's not the same as being a coward. A coward runs. You're still here. I want to learn, she said, looking me in the eye. I don't know how to be like you. I don't know how to live without the armor. I smiled, a real warm smile. Oh, honey, I can't teach you that. That's something you learn by living, by making mistakes, by being honest. You start. You start by asking yourself, before you buy anything or say anything. Am I doing this for me, or am I doing this for them? We talked for a long time. When she left, she hugged me. A real hug. That night, David called. "She came home," he said, his voice lighter than I'd heard it in years. "She seems different, lighter." "She is," I said. "She's just starting." "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, David. Always." I hung up the phone. I never had to pretend to be poor again. I didn't need to. Margaret and Richard, they never changed. They still send cards at Christmas, signed with a fancy pen. But that's not my problem anymore. I have my son. I have a daughter-in-law who is learning to be strong. And I have my peace. And that, my dears, is a kind of wealth no one can ever take from you. That's my story for today. I'll be back tomorrow with another one, as I am every single day. So make sure you follow and click that little notification bell so you don't miss it. And if you want to hear another story about a family getting a big surprise, just click on one of the videos you see on the screen now. I'll see you tomorrow.